What's going on, creators? Anthony here, and in this video we're going to break down my budget recommendations, how to get the best looking content while spending as little money as possible. Okay, so diving right in, we gotta talk about the camera. And up first, I would recommend actually sticking with your smartphone. People have been creating content successfully with phones for the past decade. So assuming you have a phone that's under 10 years old, it's gonna have a camera that will allow you to create great content. Now, if you're looking for my top recommendations, that's gonna come down to the iPhone series and Samsung's Galaxy series. This doesn't mean that other brands are bad. I think Google, Huawei, Sony, they all have great phones. But if you're starting from scratch, these are the two brands that I would recommend. Now, when it comes to recommending specific models, I would have to say that Apple kind of changed the game when they released the iPhone 12. That was a huge jump in camera quality, and then kind of at the same time, all the other camera brands started following suit. So I'd recommend getting an iPhone 12, 13, 14, or any new model that comes out. And then for Samsung, they released the S21 right around the same time as the iPhone 12. So the S21, the S22, and the S23 are also great options. Personally, I think iPhones have slightly better image quality straight out of camera, but on the flip side, I would say the Samsung phones have more features. They're more feature rich. They allow you to control the exposure settings directly in the native camera app. And you're also going to get that super far zoom telephoto lens, which for some people can be really useful. Now, if you don't want to use a smartphone, you could buy a dedicated camera. And when we're talking about cameras that are under $1,000, I really think there's only one that's worth considering, and that is the Sony ZV-E10. Coming in at $799, which includes a kit lens, that's the only camera under $1,000 that I think will compete with the smartphones that I recommended earlier. The Sony ZV-E10 is a crop sensor camera, but it can film great 1080p and 4K footage. It can also film 4K at up to 60 frames per second, so you can get that smooth slow motion. It has a fully articulating screen so you can see yourself while you're filming. It has a dedicated mic jack so you can plug in an external microphone and get even higher quality audio. It can also easily connect to your computer, so if you're live streaming or doing anything else like that, it will be a very easy process. And the main thing about this camera that separates it from smartphones is the fact that it can take interchangeable lenses. Yes, I know you can buy third-party lenses for smartphones, but with a dedicated camera, it is a game changer to be able to buy different lenses with lower apertures and get a ton of different looks in your content. Now, really quick, if you're struggling to determine if you want to buy a smartphone or if you want to buy the Sony ZV-E10, here's how I look at it. If you just really want to create content, it's not really the process of creating content that gets you jazzed up, but the finished product, I would highly recommend going with a smartphone because that is the easiest, fastest, and most efficient way to produce really high quality content where the focus is on the end product, not really the process of how it was made. On the flip side, if you're kind of a technology nerd, you want to learn about all the different settings, the different lenses, and you get jazzed up by all that stuff, then I'd recommend spending the same amount of money and getting a dedicated camera like the Sony ZV-E10. Now, up next, we have the microphone. And when it comes to microphones, I really recommend almost everyone getting started buys a lavalier or lav microphone. It all really comes down to versatility. You can basically use lav mics in any situation. And my top rated microphone that is super budget friendly is this one right here. This is the Pop Voice Pro lavalier microphone. You can get it on Amazon for $10 to $15, and the audio quality is really good. I'll actually play a clip on screen right now just so you can get an idea. So this is a quick test of the Pop Voice Pro lavalier microphone for $10 to $15. This audio quality is spectacular. Highly recommend it. Using a lavalier microphone is really easy. You just take this plug side and you plug it into your camera, and then you thread the actual microphone side, usually up underneath your shirt. Now you can use something like this, which is going to allow you to actually clip the microphone right on your shirt, or you can use something like this. This is just a little sticky pad that connects to the microphone and it actually sticks underneath your shirt. I usually do it on the inside of my collar. That's gonna hide your mic and still get really good audio quality. The only thing, if you're doing that, you wanna make sure the mic is on the innermost level of clothes. So let's say you were wearing an undershirt, another shirt on top of that, and then you had like a button-up shirt and then another jacket. I'm imagining it's very cold in this situation. You don't want to put that microphone on the inside of one of the outer layers of clothing because the way those two rub up against each other, you're gonna get some rustling noise. But if you do it on the innermost level of your clothes, it's just gonna rub up against your skin. And believe it or not, your skin does not make a rubbing noise in the same way that clothes do when they rub up against each other. The stickies that I use are called Rycoat stickies, and like all the gear in these videos, I'll have them linked in the description below. Now, while we're still talking about about microphones, I need to let you know about something that will drive you crazy if it was happening and you just weren't aware. So right here, I have two different microphones in my hand. This is a TRRS. You can see there is a tip, ring, sleeve. That's what TRRS stands for. And then this one is tip, ring, sleeve. It is TRS. So TRRS, TRS. The difference between the two is one is meant for professional cameras, like dedicated cameras, and the other is meant for smartphones and computers. If you plug one into another, it's not really gonna give you any audio. You're gonna think your mic's broken. So here's the cheat code. TRRS is for smartphones and computers. TRS is for dedicated cameras and professional audio gear. Now, it doesn't really matter which one you buy because they have these that can be found on Amazon for just a couple of dollars, and it is a converter. It can convert TRS into TRRS and TRRS into TRS. Now, let's say you're filming content where you're not gonna be close enough to the camera where you can actually plug the lav mic directly in. In that situation, you're gonna want to buy a Bluetooth microphone set. The most budget-friendly option I can find where it still produces good audio is the Maybesta professional wireless lavalier. It's $26 on Amazon. This is the best option for smartphones because it can plug directly into them. Now, the wireless setup that I use is the Rode Wireless Go 2. It's really high quality. It comes with 2 transmitters, so it's great for multiple people talking, but there are some better options out nowadays, so I wouldn't recommend sticking with that one. The best budget wireless kit that's similar to mine is actually the Comica Vimo C3, which you can find on Amazon for $111. Just like my kit, that's gonna come with 2 transmitters, so it's great for multiple people, and 1 receiver, and the audio is super high quality. Both transmitters actually work as microphones themselves, so you can clip that onto your shirt and record directly, or you can get a lav mic and plug that into the transmitter. All right, up next, we gotta talk about the device you use to edit your content. Like I said in the previous video, you can use your smartphone, which I think is great for getting started if you're just doing shorts or maybe social media content. But as you start to produce really serious pieces of content, I'd highly recommend getting a computer. And there's basically 2 routes you can go. If you want to get the absolute best bang for your buck, save as much money but have the most powerful machine, the primary option would be to do tons and tons of research, buy all these individual parts online, and build your own PC. That is a totally valid option that I'm sure some of you will do, but personally, I have no interest in building computers, so I'd recommend, if that's you, go with the second option, which is to buy one of the new Apple Silicon Macs. Now, Apple Silicon just relates back to about 2020 when Apple released their new computer line that has their own proprietary chips inside. They no longer use Intel. These chips kind of revolutionized the Apple lineup, allowing them to be much faster and better at editing videos than they ever had before, while also reducing the actual cost of the laptops because they're producing more of the components in-house. Now, when I say Apple Silicon, right now that refers to an Apple M1 or M2 computer. Now, if you're on a super tight budget, I'd actually go with the first ever M1 computer that Apple released, which was the M1 MacBook Air. At the time of recording this video, you can find these used online for around $650, and I cannot stress enough how good this computer is for the amount of money it costs. It's not gonna be the most powerful editing machine on planet Earth. This is gonna be great for editing basic content, mostly 1080p, a little 4K here and there, some light graphics thrown in there. Now, if you do have a little bit more money to spend, there are basically 3 things that you need to key in on with computers. The first is the processor, and with Apple, that's M1, there's M1 Max, M1 Pro, then there's M2, there's M2 Pro, M2 Max. There are a lot of them out there, and basically know the more you spend, the faster the computer is gonna be. After the processor, you have RAM, which stands for random access memory. RAM is kind of like the multitasking muscle of your computer. On the lowest end, we have 8 gigabytes, then we have 16 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and 64 gigabytes of RAM. The more RAM you get, the better your computer will be at handling dense edits with high resolution footage like 4K, and also lots of graphics and effects. If you're going with an Apple Silicon computer, 8 gigabytes will definitely do the job for you, but if you can spend any extra money, 16 gigabytes will be significantly better. Okay, moving on, the next type of gear we have to talk about is your lighting. And now, again, if you cannot afford this, just really focus on using natural light in your videos. But the good news is I have a really professional lighting kit that's only gonna cost you $56. This is the Mount Dog Softbox lighting kit that you can get on Amazon. We have entire sections of this course dedicated to lighting where we go really deep and show lots of practical examples. But when it comes to lighting, there are really 3 things we wanna focus on. How much light do we have? What's the color of that light? and how diffused is the light. Pretty much all lights are going to be able to put out enough light to light a subject like you're seeing right now. As far as color is concerned, generally speaking, I recommend getting a daylight balanced light. This means your light is going to be white light. On the scale of color temperature, that is 5600 Kelvin. And for reference, that's the color of light that I'm using right now. And then finally, I would argue the most important aspect of lighting is how diffused that lighting is. We have hard light, which isn't really flattering, and then we have soft light, what you're seeing right now, which can kind of hide blemishes on the skin. It can make the people look smoother. Overall, it's just a more cinematic experience for lighting faces. To get soft light, we need to add an element of diffusion in between the actual light and the subject. Now, what I'm actually using in this video is a really thin white fabric. When my light actually passes through that fabric, it bounces all the light rays and they go in different directions, which softens that light and makes it more flattering on my face. What's great about the Mount Dog kit is it actually includes a diffuser with the purchase. So you can rest assured that when you shine this light on your face with the diffuser, you're gonna look good. And then last but not least, we have to talk about the tripod. Good thing about tripods is you can find them for super cheap online. I'd actually recommend the Amazon Basics one. It's really high quality. It can't stand super tall. So if you're, a really tall human being and you want to talk to your camera while you're standing, I might recommend looking elsewhere, but this is a great option and it's only going to cost you $18. Now, if you still have a little bit of money to spend in your budget, I'd actually recommend one of the tripods I'm using right now, which is the Kair BV30L. It's going to cost $139. You can get it on Amazon. But what's great about this tripod is the fact that it has a fluid head, which means you can very smoothly pan and tilt your camera. To be completely honest, most of the content that I create, I'm not actually moving my cameras on my tripod, so that's something I don't really need. But if you're out and you're using this tripod for tons of different styles of content, especially for B-roll, it is nice to have a fluid head, and this is one of the most affordable tripods that will give you that. Now that officially does it for my budget recommendations. Odds are you already have two of the biggest elements, which is a camera, hopefully your smartphone, and then a computer. If you're worried that your computer might not be strong enough, the best thing that you can do is just record a couple clips of footage on your phone, import them into your computer, and see how the actual editing process is. Odds are what you have will be more than enough to get started. Aside from those two major things, the camera and the computer, we're only talking a few $100s between the microphone, the light, and the tripod. Either way, I hope you found this video valuable. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.